Hi, it's Ramsey Dewey over here in Shanghai, China. Welcome to another edition of Q&A with the Coach. Today we have a question from our friend Jonathan. Jonathan wrote me a pretty lengthy letter explaining the situation in detail, but he did me a solid and summarized it in bold print, to which I will read to you. He said, "My basic question is, how do I say respectfully to a sensei or the other guys that I train with that I am a religious dude and I can't touch girls during training? Also, what do I do when I'm disrespected for saying such things as has happened in the past? I really appreciate you. Thanks." All right, Jonathan, I appreciate your question. And I get it. I am a religious person myself. There are a lot of things that I do and don't do simply because I believe it is God's will for me. And so I understand it. Our belief systems are different, but the core principle is the same, right? So Jonathan's in this situation where he's a martial artist. He trains in martial arts, and if you didn't know, in order to learn how to fight, you actually have to make physical contact with other people. And I think a lot of women kind of get a free pass at this if they don't want to train with a man for whatever reason. They don't have to explain themselves. They don't have to say, I don't want to train with him because it makes me feel uncomfortable, or he's big and scary, or I have a religious reason not to, or whatever. People just kind of accept it. But when a man doesn't want to train with a woman, it's not quite the same, is it? Right? And so Jonathan has had a lot of insults thrown at him over this. He's been called a sexist, misogynist, even a racist, and all these other horrible things that people have attacked him with. He even said he was literally attacked by a sensei, a coach at some, I think it was a karate school he attended once, who came after him when he said, I will not train with this woman. It is against my religion. Okay. So what should you do? Well, stick to your guns. If it's what you believe and you believe it is the will of God, stick to it. And simply express that to other people. And they'll question you. They'll call you into question all the time. Well, what difference does it make if you poke a girl in the shoulder or whatever? Are you going to go to hell or whatever it is that you might believe? And they'll try to find all the loopholes in your belief system, if you will. For example, I don't drink coffee and I don't drink tea. Those are religious tenets that I uphold because I believe it's God's will for me that I don't. Now I've got a bunch of practical reasons that I can explain why I don't consume caffeine, which is in coffee. Mind you, caffeine is not proscribed by my religion. Coffee is, right? And also tea. But you get a lot of weird looks from people because a lot of people worldwide drink those things. And they will constantly ask me to explain myself and justify that position. Well, why not? Give me one good reason why not. What happens if you do? And I don't owe anybody an explanation beyond I believe it is God's will for me. And you know what? You don't owe anyone any other explanation besides that. If they don't accept it's against my religion, and your religion is not harming anyone, they have no right to attack you. And if they do, they're a bunch of jerks and they're not worth your time. Not worth your time and attention to train with. Find somewhere else to train. And here in Shanghai, I've trained with a huge variety of different people from all the corners of the earth, from so many different countries. I had a student who was a Sikh, and in his religion they they covered their head, and he had a turban. It was like this special sports turban that he wore. I always got a kick out of that because I'd never seen anything like it. I'd seen Sikhs wear the traditional turban, covering their heads, covering their hair. I guess they don't cut it and it's very long, something like that. Correct me if I'm wrong about that. But he would always wear that for religious purposes. And nobody made fun of him for it. But if they did, oh man, They would have been gone quicker than that from that gym. That's not how we roll here, guys. So I hope you were able to find a place that respects you. Martial artists always talk about respect. Respect this, respect that. We bow because of respect. We keep our uniforms clean because of respect. We do this and that because of respect, depending on the martial art. They're all about talking about respect. But talking about respect and actually showing respect are two radically different things. The freedom of religious belief and the freedom of religious expression is so important. I don't care if you believe something different than I do. You probably do. Most people on this planet believe something radically different than what I believe. We all have our own perspectives on life, the universe, and everything else. So I don't care what your perspective is. I care that you have one. And I care that you have a right to believe it and a right to express it. Now, obviously, all countries don't allow that. The country I live in has some very strict guidelines as far as freedom of belief and expression of religion goes. In the People's Republic of China, it's basically, you are free to believe whatever you want, but as far as religious expression, you must have express permission from the government. And again, one of my religious tenets is a belief that it is important to uphold the law, inasmuch as it is just. And so, got to live by that rule. Can't go out proselytizing in the People's Republic or anything like that. So what do you do when people are disrespectful to you? If they attack you, if they insult you, if they belittle you? And when you are a religious person, when you ascribe to a belief system that requires more of you than simply going to a church meeting once a week, that requires you to live differently and set yourself apart from the world in some way, you will be attacked. You will be scorned. You will be mocked. You will be ridiculed by those who do not understand what you understand. And clearly you believe what you believe. And that's okay. That's good. I respect that. I respect people who believe something strongly. I always find when I meet Muslims here in China, which happens quite often. I meet a lot of people from Muslim countries. I find we have a lot in common, because in my religion we don't drink alcohol. In their religion they don't drink alcohol. And we have a lot of differences in our religions, but we can meet on that point, like, hey, you don't drink, I don't drink. All these other people around us are drinking, let's hang out. And yeah, man, if only everybody in the world was able to meet on common ground instead of focusing on the radical differences. So what do you do? Well, if you have a sensei, a coach, whoever, who is giving you a hard time about that, just say no. You have the power to walk away. If you explain your situation and they don't accept that, walk away. And you might be in a situation where it's the only gym in town, or the only gym within many miles of where you live. And you might feel like this is the only opportunity. And you might be wanting to not necessarily convert people to your way of thinking, but get people to appreciate why you do what you do. I remember one day, about 22 years ago, I was walking down the streets of Argentina, and this gang of like 12 guys with weapons came out. And one of them had a gun, pointed them at my head. Several had knives. One had a chain he was swinging around. Some had sticks or pipes or something. It was kind of dark. And the little guy in the group had a brick he was patting in his hands. And they wanted money, and I didn't have any. And so what did I do? I was thinking, man, I've heard these stories about, people getting shot when they didn't give the robbers what they wanted. So I was in the Villas de Miseria in Argentina. Ooh, that's a rough neighborhood, man. I was passing through José Cepas. Argentinian viewers, you know where that is, man. You know what kind of place that was in the 90s. And so I thought, man, what do I do? What do I do? And I had a bag full of books. The Bible, several copies of the Book of Mormon, these pamphlets that said Our Heavenly Father's Plan, with the address of the church on it. I thought, well, I have to give them something. So I emptied out my bag very slowly and said, I will give you everything I have. And I started handing out the pamphlets. And I started sharing my message with them. Here's a pamphlet all about God's plan for you. And the address of the church is on the back. You are invited to come. I'd like to teach you about my church. I'd like to teach you about Jesus, and so on. And as I went on speaking about these things, the countenances of these young men changed, and they went from this heightened state, like, should we shoot him or not, to, what the heck is going on here? No, they didn't join the church. They didn't show up that Sunday. But what happened? The leader of the group with the gun, he put it down. And he said, never mind, just never mind, get out of here. Why am I sharing that story? Well, it came to mind, so I figured I'd share it. Because that's what I do when I do these talks. I sit down and I share what's going on in my head as I think about your questions. But why am I bringing up that story? When you share your religious beliefs with other people, in whatever capacity, whether you're simply saying, this is what I believe, or whether you are inviting them to join you in your belief, or to pursue that belief, or to ask God about that belief, or whatever it is, you're going to elicit some very strong feelings. You're going to get a powerful reaction, sometimes a very negative one, often a very negative one, and sometimes a positive one. In this case, I didn't get shot, because these guys were so weirded out from knowing that they had just mugged a pair of missionaries, walking around sharing the Book of Mormon and the Bible with people. I remember when I was a kid, these other kids at school, they would make fun of me all the time for my religion. They would say, you know what you believe? And I would say, yes, I know what I believe. And they would say, I know what you believe. In your church, you sacrifice black chickens on your altar while you wear your black hooded robes and ring bells and chant hymns to Satan. And if you're not aware, my church is absolutely nothing like that. But they believed it. And they told me, this is what you believe. And I would tell them, no, that's nothing like what I believe. That doesn't happen. And they'd be like, no, we know better than you about what you believe. So you'll always have people trying to change you, trying to say, get with the times, because whatever reason. But I would say, if you honestly believe that what you ascribe to religiously is the will of God, what else could you possibly do except for the will of God? If you're following that tenet for cultural reasons, because you feel like you're supposed to, out of an obligation to anything else that is not the will of God, ask some questions. Ask some questions, man. But I'm not here to change your mind about what you believe, not at all, any more than you approached me trying to change my mind about anything, which you did not. You showed respect to me. Respect is deserved and returned to you, my friend. So this is a long diatribe, it seems, and the answer is really quite short, and I've said it before, I've repeated it, I'll say it again. Explain your situation. Follow your faith. And if they don't accept that, move on until you find people who can respect you for you. Thanks for watching. Now get out there and train.